The massive space station floated in the dark void between stars. Nexus Prime was bigger than most moons, home to millions of aliens from across the galaxy. Its metal walls gleamed under the light of distant suns. Today, something important was happening inside. Admiral Dae-hyun Kim sat in his chair on the bridge of his warship. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. 3 years of war had aged him. His uniform was clean but worn. He stared at the message screen in front of him, reading the same words over and over. "Sir?" "They're waiting for your answer," said So-min Park. She stood beside his chair, her hands folded behind her back. She had been Earth's best diplomat before the war started. Now she was just another refugee on a warship. "I know what they're waiting for," Dae-hyun said. His voice was quiet but firm. "The question is whether they'll like what they hear." On the other side of the galaxy, inside Nexus Prime, 7 different alien species sat around a huge table. The room was so large that sound echoed off the walls. Each species looked different from the others. Some had scales, others had fur. Some breathed air, others breathed gas. But they all agreed on one thing. Humans were a problem that needed solving. The leader of the meeting was a creature made of living crystal. Light moved through its body like water. When it spoke, its voice sounded like singing glass. "The human response is expected within 1 hour," it said. "Surely they will see reason." A reptilian alien with 4 arms nodded. "No species has ever refused our terms. The humans are not special. They are primitive," added another alien that looked like a giant insect. "They only reached space travel 300 years ago. We have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." The crystal being turned toward a massive screen on the wall. It showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human worlds. Blue dots marked hegemony worlds. There were many more blue dots than red ones. "Look at this," it said. "We control 60% of all inhabited systems. They control less than 2%. This war should have ended long ago." Back on his ship, Dae-hyun walked to the window. Outside, he could see other human ships floating in space. They were smaller than the enemy ships. Their weapons were older. Their armor was thinner. But they were still there, still fighting. "Tell me about the terms again," he said to So-min. She picked up a datapad and read from it. "Complete surrender of all military forces. Withdrawal from all contested systems. Earth and the colonies become protectorates under hegemony rule. In exchange, they promise not to destroy our worlds." "Generous," Dae-hyun said. There was no warmth in his voice. "That's what they call it," So-min replied. "They think we should be grateful." Captain Ji-woo Lee entered the bridge. She was young for a ship captain, but the war had promoted many young officers. Too many older ones had died. "Admiral, the fleet is ready for your orders." Dae-hyun nodded. He had known Ji-woo since she was a lieutenant. She had been on the bridge when the war started. She had seen friends die. She had watched colonies burn. Like all of them, she had learned what it meant to fight for something bigger than yourself. "What do you think, Captain?" Dae-hyun asked. "Should we accept their kind offer?" Ji-woo's face was stone. "With respect, sir, I'd rather die." "That might be exactly what happens," Dae-hyun warned. "Then we die free," Ji-woo said. Inside Nexus Prime, the waiting continued. The alien leaders talked among themselves in their different languages. They shared stories of other wars, other species that had fought them and lost. Always, in the end, the defeated enemies had seen sense. They had accepted that survival was better than pride. "The humans fought bravely," the reptilian alien said, "but bravery without wisdom is just stupidity. They will surrender." "Of course they will," agreed the insect creature. "Look at their losses. Half their fleet is gone. 3 of their colonies are occupied. They have no choice." The crystal being was not so sure. It had studied human history. These creatures did strange things. They fought wars over ideas that could not be touched or measured. They spoke of freedom and honor as if these things were real. Other species fought for territory, for resources, for power. for survival. Humans seemed to fight for reasons that made no sense. Perhaps, it said slowly, we should prepare for unexpected responses. The other aliens laughed. What could be unexpected about surrender? On the human ship, the final hour was ending. Tae-hyun gathered his senior officers in the meeting room. The ship's doctor was there, and the chief engineer and several others. They all looked tired. They all looked ready. You know what they're offering, Tae-hyun said. You know what it means. We keep our lives, but we lose everything else. Our children grow up as slaves to aliens who think they know what's best for us. What's the alternative? Asked the ship's doctor, Dr. Byung-ho Nam. He was an old man who had seen too much death. We're outnumbered 10-1, maybe more. The alternative is what we've been doing, said Chief Engineer Won Siko. We fight. We make them pay for every system they take. We show them that humans don't quit. And if we lose? Dr. Nam asked. Then we lose on our terms, Dae-hyun said. The meeting was short. They all knew what they had decided long ago. The vote was just a formality. When it was done, every hand was raised in agreement. So-min Park activated the communication system. The signal would reach Nexus Prime in minutes. She looked at her prepared speech one last time, then set it aside. Some things were better said simply. Inside the alien station, the leaders gathered around their communication device. The crystal being spoke first. Humans of Earth, you have heard our terms. Do you accept? So-min's voice came through clearly. She sounded calm, almost friendly. We have considered your offer very carefully. The aliens leaned forward. This was it. Finally, the war would end. Our answer, So-min continued, is no. The silence that followed was complete. No alien spoke, no machine made noise. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Finally, the reptilian alien found its voice. Did she say no? Impossible, whispered the insect creature. No species refuses such terms. It does not happen. The crystal being stared at the communication device as if it had broken. In all its long life, through dozens of wars and hundreds of negotiations, it had never heard such a response. Species begged for terms, like these. They sent gifts to show gratitude. They celebrated their survival. They did not say no. Perhaps they did not understand, the reptilian alien suggested. Their translation systems might be damaged. But the crystal being knew better. It had heard the certainty in the human voice. These creatures understood perfectly. They simply did not care that they were outnumbered. They did not care that they would likely die. They cared more about something else, something the galaxy's greatest minds could not understand. On the human ship, Dae-hyun Kim looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien fleets were moving. Soon there would be more battles, more death, more loss. But for now, in this moment, humanity was still free. Orders, sir? Captain Ji-woo asked. Signal the fleet, Dae-hyun said. We continue, as planned. And if they come for us, Dae-hyun smiled for the first time in months. Then we show them what humans do best. Captain Ji-woo Lee pressed her face against the cold metal of her ship's corridor wall. The enemy was close now. She could feel the vibrations through the hull as their weapons charged. Her ship, Soul's Thunder, was not the biggest in the human fleet. It was not the strongest, but it was hers, and she would not give it up without a fight. Captain, called Young-soo Han from the engine room. His voice came through the ship's communication system, crackling with static. They're trying to jam our systems. I can keep us running, but not for long. Do what you can, Ji-woo replied. She pushed herself away from the wall and walked toward the bridge. Her crew was waiting for her. They had been together for 2 years. Now, they had fought in 12 battles. They had won 7 and lost 5. Today would be number 13. The enemy ships were huge compared to Soul's Thunder. They looked like metal cities floating in space. Their weapons could destroy a human ship with one shot. Their shields could stop anything humans threw at them. By all the rules of war, this fight should have been over before it started. But humans did not follow the rules of war. "Report," Jiwoo said as she entered the bridge. "3 enemy cruisers closing fast," said Lieutenant Taemin Choi. He was the ship's weapons officer, a young man with quick hands and quicker eyes. "They're demanding our surrender." "Of course they are," Jiwoo said. She sat in her captain's chair and looked at the main screen. The enemy ships were beautiful in their own way. Smooth lines, gleaming armor, perfect formation. They moved like they were dancing. Human ships moved like they were fighting. "Signal the Daigu's Pride and New Busan," Jiwoo ordered. "Tell them we're going with Plan 7. Taemin's eyes went wide. "Plan 7, Captain? That's insane?" Jiwoo finished. "Yes, it is. Send the signal." On the bridge of the enemy flagship, Commander Veltar studied the human ships through his viewing screen. He was a member of the Corvani race, tall and thin with gray skin and 4 arms. He had been fighting wars for longer than humans had been, in space. He knew how these things worked. "The small ships are moving," reported his tactical officer. "They should surrender soon." Veltar nodded. Human ships were primitive. Their weapons were weak. Their armor was thin. The only reason this war had lasted so long was because humans kept building more ships to replace the ones that got destroyed. It was wasteful and stupid. "Open a channel to the human vessels," Veltar ordered. "I will give them one more chance to surrender." The communication screen lit up, showing Jiwoo's face. She looked young for a ship captain. Her uniform was worn and patched in several places. She needed better military supplies. "Human captain," Veltar said in his most reasonable voice, "you are outgunned and outnumbered. Surrender now and your crew will be treated well." Jiwoo smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Thank you for the offer, Commander. But we have other plans." "What plans could you possibly have?" Veltar asked. "You have 3 small ships. I have 3 large ships. The mathematics are simple." "You're right," Jiwoo said. "The math is simple, but you're forgetting something." "What am I forgetting?" "We're human." The communication ended. Veltar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his tactical officer. What did she mean by that? Before the officer could answer, the human ships did something impossible. Instead of trying to run away or spreading out to make harder targets, they flew directly toward the Corvani cruisers, straight at them, as fast as their engines could push them. "They're attacking," the tactical officer said, his voice full of disbelief. "That's suicide," Veltar said. "Our shields will stop their weapons. Their ships will be destroyed in seconds." But, as the human ships got closer, Veltar began to understand what he was seeing. They were not trying to destroy his ships with weapons. They were trying to ram them. "Evasive maneuvers," Veltar ordered. "All ships move." The Corvani cruisers were powerful, but they were also huge and slow. They began to turn, but it took time. The human ships were small and fast. They moved like angry insects, darting and weaving. Seoul's Thunder aimed for the flagship's main engine. Jiwoo could see the enemy trying to turn away, but they would not make it in time. Her ship would hit them in 30 seconds. "All crew to impact positions," Jiwoo called over the ship's communication system. "This is going to hurt." In the engine room, young Soo-han strapped himself into his emergency chair. He had done this twice before. Both times he had lived. He hoped today would make it 3. "Engine room ready for impact," he reported. On the weapons deck, Taemin Choi made sure all the ship's guns were pointed forward. If they were going to hit the enemy, they might as well shoot while they did it. "Weapons ready," he said. The other 2 human ships were making their own attacks. Daigu's Pride went for the 2nd cruiser's bridge. New Busan aimed for the 3rd cruiser's weapon systems. All 3 human captains knew that their ships would probably not survive. They did not care. This was what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Other species fought to win. Humans fought to make their enemies lose. 10 seconds to impact, Jiwoo called out. Veltar watched the human ship growing larger on his screen. At the last moment, he understood what these creatures were really doing. They were not trying to win this battle. They were trying to send a message. The message was simple. If you want to kill us, you will have to pay for it. Sol's thunder hit the flagship's engine section at full speed. The human ship's hull crumpled like paper, but its momentum carried it deep into the enemy vessel. Both ships' engines exploded at the same time, sending fire and metal flying through space. Jiwoo felt her ship shake apart around her. The lights went out. The air grew thin, but she could hear cheering from her crew over the communication system. They had done it. The flagship was crippled, its engines dead, its hull torn open. It would not be fighting any more battles today. Daegu's pride managed to damage the second cruiser's bridge before being destroyed. The enemy ship could still fight, but it was confused and hurt. New Busan's attack failed completely. The third cruiser shot it down before it could hit anything important. But 2 out of 3 was not bad for a suicide mission. On another human ship watching from far away, intelligence officer Yoon Song recorded everything. She had been studying alien military tactics for 3 years. She knew how they thought, how they planned, how they expected their enemies to behave. They expected rational behavior. They expected their enemies to value their own lives more than victory. They expected surrender when the odds became impossible. They did not expect humans. Send the battle data to Fleet Command, Yoonji told her communication officer. Make sure they know what happened here. What should I tell them? The officer asked. Tell them it worked, Yoonji said. Tell them the aliens are learning to be afraid. Back on the crippled flagship, Veltar floated in his damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead. His ship's engines were gone, his formation was broken. And all because 3 small human ships had decided to throw themselves at his cruisers like stones. Commander, his tactical officer said weakly. We have reports. From other battle groups, the humans are using these tactics everywhere. Everywhere? Veltar asked. Yes, sir. They call it ramming speed. They would rather destroy their own ships than let us capture them. Veltar had been in hundreds of battles. He had seen species fight with desperation when their homes were threatened. He had seen final stands and last battles. But he had never seen anything like this. Normal species fought harder when they were winning and weaker when they were losing. Humans seemed to fight harder the closer they came to death. Get me a communication link to Fleet Command, Veltar ordered. I need to make a report. What will you tell them? The tactical officer asked. Veltar looked at the wreckage floating outside his ship. Pieces of Sol's thunder mixed with pieces of his own vessel. Human bodies and Corvani bodies drifted together in the cold space. I will tell them, Veltar said slowly, that we are not fighting a normal war. 3 days later, the report reached Nexus Prime. The crystal being read it carefully, then read it again. Similar reports were coming in from all across the war zone. Human ships ramming enemy vessels. Human soldiers fighting to the last man instead of surrendering. Human colonies choosing to destroy themselves rather than be captured. The insect creature that had been so confident before was not laughing now. This is not how war works, it said. There are rules. There are proper ways to fight. Humans do not care about our rules, the crystal being replied. They have their own rules. And their first rule seems to be, never give up. The reptilian alien with 4 arms was studying casualty reports. We are winning every battle, it said. But the cost. We lose more ships in each victory than we can afford. How is that possible? Asked another alien leader. Our technology is superior. Our ships are better. Because they are willing to die to hurt us, the crystal being explained. And we are not willing to die to hurt them. That changes the mathematics of war. For the first time since the war began, the alien leaders were quiet. They had fought many wars against many species. Always when the cost became too high, their enemies had chosen to live as subjects rather than die as free beings. Humans seemed to prefer death. The crystal being made a decision. Double our fleet strength in human space, it ordered. Vega Station was not beautiful. It was a mass of metal and concrete floating in the darkness between 2 stars. Pipes and cables ran along its outside walls like veins. Ships came and went from its docking bays at all hours. It was ugly and practical, and absolutely vital to the human war effort. Commander Hyunwoo Kang stood in the station's command center, looking at reports from his scout ships. The news was bad. A hegemony fleet of more than 200 ships was moving toward Vega Station. His own defenses included 30 human vessels and the station's fixed weapons. The math was not good. "How long do we have?" asked Dr. Mi-young Lim. She was the station's chief medical officer, a small woman with tired eyes and steady hands. She had been preparing for this day for months. 18 hours until they arrive, Hyunwoo replied. Maybe 20 if we're lucky. And then? Then, we find out how long 30 ships can hold off 200. Dr. Lim nodded. She had treated wounded from a dozen battles. She knew what those odds meant. I'll prepare the medical bays. We're going to need them. In the civilian quarters, Dong Jun-yu was talking to a group of shopkeepers and teachers. He was not a soldier. Before the war, he had sold farming equipment on a colony world, but when the fighting started, he had volunteered to help organize the non-military people on stations like Vega. The fleet will be here soon, he told the group. We all know what that means. But remember, we're not helpless. There are jobs for everyone. An old woman raised her hand. What can people like us do against battleships? You can keep the station running, Dong Jun said. The soldiers will fight the ships. We'll fight to keep the lights on, the air flowing, and the wounded alive. That's how we win, by refusing to quit. A teenage boy spoke up. My sister is on one of the defense ships. What if? Then we make sure her sacrifice means something, Dong Jun said firmly. We hold the station. We make them pay for every corridor, every room, every bolt and wire. And when they finally take it, we make sure there's nothing left for them to use. The meeting broke up and people went to their assigned tasks. Some went to the power stations to keep the station's systems running. Others went to the communication centers to maintain contact with the human fleet. The bravest went to help Dr. Lim prepare the medical facilities. None of them ran. None of them tried to escape. This was what made humans different. They stayed and fought even when they could not win. The hegemony fleet was commanded by Admiral Zorthak, a member of the Veldrani race. His people were traders and diplomats, not warriors. But the war with humans had changed many things. Now even peaceful species were being asked to fight. Zorthak had studied human military tactics. He understood their preference for suicide, attacks and desperate charges. His fleet was prepared. They had shields and armor to stop ramming attacks. They had fast ships to chase down retreating enemies. They had overwhelming firepower to destroy any resistance. Begin the assault, Zorthak ordered as his fleet moved into weapons range. The battle began at long range. Human ships darted in and out of the hegemony formation, firing quickly and running away. They were too small to do much damage, but they were also hard to hit, like insects stinging a large animal. They're trying to delay us, Zorthak's tactical officer observed. Classic human tactics. Let them play their games. Zorthak replied. We have time. Eventually they will run out of ships. But as the hours passed, Zorthak began to realize that the humans were not just delaying him. Every time his ships moved closer to the station, human vessels would appear from unexpected directions. They hid behind chunks of space rock, or powered down their engines to look like debris, or simply waited in the dark until enemy ships passed by. Then they would attack with everything they had. We've lost the destroyer Kethlar, the tactical officer reported. The cruiser Maltheon is damaged. The humans are using some kind of new weapon. Zorthak looked at the battle display. The new weapon was not new at all. It was old-fashioned nuclear bombs, but the humans were delivering them in a way no sane species would attempt. They were flying small ships directly at his vessels and detonating the bombs at point-blank range. They're killing themselves to hurt us, Zorthak said in amazement. Yes, sir. Every attack is a suicide mission. This was something Zorthak could not understand. His own people valued life above all else. They fought to protect their families and their worlds, but they would not throw their lives away for small tactical advantages. Humans seemed to throw their lives away for any advantage at all. On Vega Station, Commander Hyun-woo watched the battle through his sensors. His ships were fighting well, but they were dying one by one. Soon the enemy fleet would reach the station itself. All civilian personnel to the intersections, he ordered. Military personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Dr. Mi-young Lim was in Medical Bay 7 when the first enemy shots hit the station. The whole structure shook and lights flickered. She could hear metal groaning under the stress. "How bad is it?" asked her assistant, a young man named Sang-ho. "Bad enough," Dr. Lim replied. She was bandaging a wounded soldier who had been brought in from one of the destroyed ships. "But we're still here. As long as we're still here, we keep working." More. Wounded arrived every few minutes. Some were from the defense fleet. Others were station personnel hurt when enemy fire breached the outer hull. Dr. Lim treated them all the same way, quickly, efficiently, and with a kind word when she had time. In the power generation section, engineers worked to keep the station's systems running as explosions shook the walls around them. Young Sik Kim, the chief power technician, refused to leave his post even when a hull breach sent deadly radiation flooding through his section. "Evacuate the area," Commander Hyun-woo ordered over the communication system. "Can't do that, sir," Hyung-sik replied calmly. "If I leave, the main reactor will go offline. Without power, the guns stop working. The radiation will kill you." "Maybe. But if I leave now, the radiation will kill everyone." Hyung-sik stayed at his post. So did his team. They rerouted power around damaged systems and kept the station's weapons firing, even as the hull buckled around them. Dong Jun-yu was in Cargo Bay 12, coordinating civilian volunteers. A group of teenagers was carrying ammunition to the gun positions. An old man was helping to move wounded soldiers to the medical bays. A woman who had been a teacher was learning to operate a damage control system. "The east section is losing air pressure," reported a volunteer. "Seal it off," Dong-jun ordered. "Move everyone from that area to the central hub." "Where will they sleep?" "They'll sleep when we're dead," Dong-jun said. "Until then, we keep working." The siege continued for days. The hegemony fleet surrounded the station and pounded it with everything they had. Human ships still fought, but there were only a few left. The station's outer hull was cracked and broken. Whole sections had lost air and power, but the humans inside refused to surrender. Admiral Zorthak could not understand it. By every rule of warfare, the station should have given up after the first day. The defenders were outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of supplies. Any rational commander would have negotiated for terms. Instead, the humans kept fighting. They turned cargo bays into gun positions. They used maintenance tunnels to move around damaged areas. They converted civilian spaces into weapons factories. "Sir," his tactical officer said, "we're receiving a transmission from the station." "Are they finally ready to surrender?" "I don't think so, sir." Commander Hyun-woo's face appeared on the communication screen. He looked tired, but his eyes were clear and determined. Behind him, sparks flew from damaged equipment. "Hegemony Fleet," Hyun-woo said. "This is Vega Station. We have a message for you." "Speak your message," Zorthak replied. "We know you think we'll give up. We know you think we're beaten. But you're wrong about something important." "What are we wrong about?" Hyun-woo smiled. It was a cold smile, the smile of a man who had made a hard decision. "You think this station matters to us. You think we're fighting to save it. Are you not?" "No," Hyun-woo said. "We're fighting to make sure you can't use it." The communication ended. Zorthak stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his tactical officer. What did he mean by that? Before the officer could answer, sensors detected massive energy readings from inside the station. Someone had rigged the power reactors to overload. The whole structure was going to explode. "All ships, emergency retreat," Zorthak ordered. Most of his fleet got away in time. 3 ships did not. When Vega Station died, it took them with it. Zorthak watched the explosion from a safe distance. The station had been completely destroyed. Nothing was left but glowing debris and radiation. The humans had won nothing, They had lost their base, their ships, and most of their people. But somehow, Zorthak felt like he was the one who had been defeated. "Casualty report," he requested. 47 ships damaged, sir. 3 ships destroyed. Nearly 8,000 crew members dead or wounded. Zorthak thought about those numbers. 8,000 casualties to take one human space station. At this rate, conquering all of human space would cost the hegemony millions of lives. For the first time since the war began, Zorthak wondered if victory was worth the price. In the wreckage of Vega Station, a few escape pods drifted in the darkness. Not many humans had survived, but some had. The mining colony on Titan looked peaceful from space. Its lights twinkled against the orange surface of Saturn's largest moon. Ships came and went from its ports carrying supplies and workers. To the hegemony occupation force, it seemed like a normal, quiet colony that had accepted its new rulers. They were wrong. Jae-sung Ryu crouched in the maintenance tunnels beneath the main refinery. He was a thin man with quick hands and patient eyes. Before the war, he had been an engineer. Now he was something else, a saboteur, a terrorist, a freedom fighter. The hegemony had different names for people like him, but he did not care what they called him. He cared about results. "The power coupling is right there," whispered Woo Jin Park, pointing to a thick cable that ran along the tunnel wall. Woo Jin had been a demolitions expert in the human military before Titan was captured. Now he used his skills in secret, making life difficult for the occupying forces. "How long will the blackout last?" asked Jae-sung. 12 hours, maybe 14 if we're lucky. Long enough for Sun-hee to do her broadcast. Sun-hee Choi was somewhere else in the colony, probably in the old communication center that the aliens thought was broken. She was the voice of the resistance, the one who told other captured worlds that humans were still fighting. Her broadcasts reached across the galaxy, carrying messages of defiance to anyone willing to listen. Jae-sung placed the explosive device against the power cable. It was small, no bigger than his thumb, but it would shut down the entire refinery. The aliens would fix it, of course. They always did. But fixing things took time and money and effort. That was the point. "Ready," he whispered. They crawled back, through the tunnel to a safe distance, then activated the device. The explosion was small and muffled, but the results were immediate. All over the colony, lights went out. Machines stopped working. The refinery that produced fuel for hegemony ships went silent. In the alien command post, alarms began to sound. Commander Thekvar, a tall Corvani officer with gray skin and tired eyes, looked at his status displays with growing frustration. This was the 15th accident this month. Power failures, equipment breakdowns, computer glitches, supply shortages. Everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong on Titan. "Repair teams to the refinery," Thekvar ordered. "Find the problem and fix it." His aide, a younger Corvani named Velkas, looked uncertain. "Sir, maybe this was not an accident. The humans might be—" "The humans are defeated," Thekvar interrupted. "This colony is under our control. These are just maintenance problems." But deep down, Thekvar knew better. He had been an occupation commander for 10 years, on a dozen different worlds. He knew what resistance looked like. And Titan had all the signs. Small accidents that happened too often, equipment that failed at exactly the wrong time, workers who followed orders but somehow never got things done quickly. The humans were fighting back, but they were doing it quietly, carefully, invisibly. In another part of the colony, Sun-hee Choi sat in the ruins of an old communication station. The aliens had bombed it during their invasion, thinking they had destroyed Titan's ability to send messages to other worlds. They had not looked carefully at the wreckage. Hidden under the collapsed walls and broken equipment, Sun-hee had built a new transmitter. It was not powerful enough to reach Earth, but it could reach other captured worlds. And from there, the message could travel further. She activated the device and began to speak into the small microphone. "This is Free Titan, broadcasting to all human worlds. The occupation continues, but so does the resistance. The aliens think they control us, but they control only our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our determination. These things remain free, On 17 different worlds, hidden receivers picked up her signal. Some were in ruined buildings, others in caves or abandoned mines. All were operated by humans who refused to accept defeat. Today we cut power to their refinery for 14 hours, Sun-Hee continued. Yesterday we contaminated a shipment of supplies. Tomorrow we will find new ways to make their occupation expensive and difficult. Every day they stay here costs them more than they can afford. This was the human strategy that the aliens could not understand. Other conquered species tried to win their freedom through great battles and heroic victories. Humans were content to make occupation unprofitable. They did not need to destroy the alien fleet. They only needed to make the aliens want to leave. Woojin Park was in the colony's main computer center, pretending to repair a damaged terminal. The Corvani guards watched him work, but they did not understand human technology well enough to know what he was really doing. Instead of fixing the terminal, Woojin was installing a small program that would cause random system failures throughout the colony. Nothing dramatic, just small glitches that would slow down work and frustrate the occupiers. A door that would not open when it should. A communication system that would cut out at important moments. A transport schedule that would put ships in the wrong places at the wrong times. Tiny problems, hundreds of them. Each one making the occupation a little more difficult, a little more expensive, a little more annoying. Is it fixed? Asked the guard. Almost, Woojin replied. He was actually installing the last part of his sabotage program. These human computers are very complicated. It takes time to understand the problem. The guard nodded. He had been told that human technology was primitive, but everything seemed to break constantly and take forever to repair. Perhaps primitive technology was just unreliable. He did not suspect that the breakdowns were intentional. In the Hegemony High Command, thousands of light years away, military planners were reviewing reports from occupied worlds. The numbers told a troubling story. Conquest was supposed to be profitable. Captured worlds should provide resources and wealth to the Empire. But human worlds were costing more to occupy than they produced. Admiral Kexthan, the Hegemony's chief military strategist, studied the reports with growing concern. He was a member of the insectoid Zephyri race, with compound eyes that could see many different wavelengths of light. He noticed patterns that others missed. Look at these figures, he said to his staff. Colony A7, formerly called New Beijing. We conquered it 6 months ago. Since then, we have spent 14 million credits on repairs, security, and administration. The colony has produced 3 million credits worth of resources. Perhaps the humans damaged the facilities during the invasion, suggested one of his aides. Colony B12, formerly called New Mumbai, Kexthan continued. Captured 8 months ago, surrendered without fighting. Repair costs, 18 million credits. Resource production, 2.7 million credits. Another aide spoke up. The human workers might be inefficient. Their technology is primitive. Colony C3, formerly called New Lagos, Kexthan said. The humans destroyed most of the infrastructure before we arrived. Rebuilding costs, 22 million credits. Current production, 1.1 million credits. The pattern was clear. Every human colony was costing the Hegemony money instead of making money. Some because they had been damaged in battle. Others because nothing seemed to work properly after conquest. Sir, said the first aide carefully, perhaps we should consider alternative approaches to human worlds, such as complete destruction. If we cannot profit from occupying them, perhaps we should simply eliminate them. Kexthan considered this. It would certainly solve the economic problem. Dead humans could not sabotage equipment or slow down production, but it would also eliminate any hope of eventual profit from human worlds. More importantly, it might make the human resistance even more desperate and dangerous. On Titan, Jae-Sung Ryu was meeting with other resistance leaders in an abandoned storage room deep underground. The group was small, only 12 people, but they represented cells throughout the colony. The fuel depot goes offline tomorrow, reported Minho Chang, a former mechanic who now specialized in making alien vehicles break down at inconvenient times. Good, Jae-Sung said. What about the communication array? Still working on it, said another resistance member. The aliens have better security there, but we think we can cause some interference with their military channels. Casualties? Asked Jae-sung. This was always the hardest question. The resistance tried to avoid killing alien soldiers directly. Dead guards would be replaced by more guards, and the occupation would become harsher. Better to make the aliens miserable than to make them angry. But sometimes violence was necessary. None this week, reported the group's weapons specialist. But we might need to take stronger action soon. The aliens are getting suspicious. Jae-sung nodded. He knew this day would come. Eventually, the occupying forces would realize that the constant breakdowns were not accidents. When that happened, the resistance would have to choose between hiding and fighting openly. He already knew which choice they would make. Commander Tekvar was in his office when his aide brought him the latest efficiency report. The numbers were even worse than last month. Power outages were up 30%. Equipment failures had doubled. Worker productivity had dropped to less than half of pre-invasion levels. Sir, Velkas said carefully, I think we need to consider the possibility that these problems are not random. Tekvar set down the report and looked at his aide. You think the humans are sabotaging us? Earth looked beautiful from space. The blue oceans caught the light of the sun and threw it back like mirrors. White clouds moved slowly across the brown and green continents. It was hard to believe that this peaceful world was at the center of a galactic war. Prime Minister Boram Kim stood in the government bunker deep beneath the capital city. Above her, enemy ships filled the sky like metal storm clouds. Their weapons were charging. Their soldiers were preparing to land. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the war began. How long do we have? She asked. 12 hours until the main assault begins, replied General Seok-jin Lee. He was the last surviving admiral of Earth's home fleet. Most of his ships were gone, destroyed in battles throughout the solar system. But he was still here, still fighting, still refusing to give up. And our defenses? Better than they expect, not as good as we need, Seok-jin said honestly. We have orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, and about 50 ships. They have over 1,000 ships. Boram nodded. She had known this day would come. Earth was the human homeworld, the symbolic heart of human resistance. The hegemony could not claim victory while Earth remained free, but they would pay a terrible price for their victory. Signal all stations, Boram ordered. Activate the Samson Protocol. Seok-jin's eyes went wide. The Samson Protocol was humanity's final option, the last card they could play. It would deny the aliens their victory, but at a cost that few people could imagine. Ma'am, are you certain? Once we activate it, Earth dies. Boram finished. But Earth dies free, and the galaxy will remember that humans chose their own ending. In the outer system, Commander Hana Yoon was leading humanity's last mobile defense force. Her ships were hidden in the asteroid belt, waiting for the right moment to strike. She had only 20 vessels left, but they were crewed by the best pilots humanity had ever produced. Contact from Earth, her communication officer reported. The Prime Minister wants to speak with you. Boram's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined, the way all human leaders had looked since the war began. Commander Yoon, Boram said, I want you to know that whatever happens today, humanity is proud of you and your crews. You have fought better and harder than anyone had the right to expect. Thank you, ma'am, Hana replied. We won't let you down. I know you won't, but I need you to understand something. In 6 hours, if the battle is going badly, we will activate the Samson Protocol. When that happens, you need to be far away from Earth. Hana felt her blood turn cold. Everyone in the military knew about the Samson Protocol, but no one had ever expected it to be used. Ma'am, surely there's another way. There is no other way, Boram said firmly. The aliens want to capture Earth intact. They want to use it as a symbol of their power, a demonstration that resistance is futile. We will not give them that satisfaction. The communication ended. Hana stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then turned to her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for orders. "You heard the Prime Minister?" Hana said. "We have 6 hours to make this hurt. Let's make them count." On the Hegemony flagship, Supreme Admiral Korthak was preparing for the final assault. He was a member of the Crystal Race, his body glowing with inner light as he considered the battle ahead. This should have been a moment of triumph. After 3 years of war, the human homeworld was finally within his grasp. But Korthak felt no joy. This war had cost the Hegemony more than anyone had expected. Entire fleets had been destroyed. Occupied worlds were in constant rebellion. The economic cost was enormous, and still the humans fought. "Begin the attack," Korthak ordered. "All ships, advance to optimal firing range." The Hegemony fleet moved toward Earth like a tide of metal and fire. Over 1,000 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had ever built. Their weapons could crack continents. Their armies could conquer worlds. Against them, Earth's defenses looked pitiful. A few dozen orbital platforms, some old ships that should have been scrapped years ago, ground-based weapons that might as well have been throwing stones. But as the alien fleet closed in, those inadequate defenses began to fight with desperate fury. The orbital platforms opened fire first. Their weapons were old and slow, but they were also larger than anything that could be mounted on a ship. Energy beams and missile swarms reached out toward the advancing fleet. The Hegemony ships absorbed the attack easily. Their shields flared but held. A few smaller vessels took damage, but nothing serious. Then Earth's hidden defenses revealed themselves. Asteroids that had been drifting peacefully in Earth's orbit suddenly lit up with weapon fire. They were actually disguised battle stations, built in secret over the past 3 years. Their first salvo caught the alien fleet by surprise, destroying 12 ships and damaging dozens more. "Clever," Korthak admitted, "but not clever enough." The Hegemony fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. The disguised battle stations died one by one, torn apart by weapons that could melt mountains. But even as they died, they kept firing. This was what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Other races fought to win. Humans fought to make their enemies hurt. In the asteroid belt, Hana Yun led her ships in a desperate charge against the rear of the alien fleet. 20 human vessels against 1,000 alien ones. It should have been suicide. But the human ships had been modified for this final battle. Their engines had been overcharged to dangerous levels. Their weapons had been pushed beyond safe limits. Their armor had been stripped away to make room for more guns. They were flying bombs, essentially. Ships built to do as much damage as possible before they were destroyed. "All ships, target the flagship," Hana ordered. "If we're going to die, let's take their leader with us." The human ships dove toward Korthak's massive command vessel like angry wasps. Alien fighters tried to stop them, but the humans were too fast and too determined. They had given up all thoughts of survival. They only cared about hurting the enemy. 3 human ships made it through the defensive fire. They rammed into the flagship's hull at full speed, their overcharged engines exploding on impact. The massive alien vessel shuddered and began to list to one side. Korthak felt his ship shake around him. Lights flickered. Alarms sounded. For a moment he thought the humans might actually succeed in destroying him. But his ship was too large, too well built to be killed by 3 small vessels. The damage was serious but not fatal. The flagship would survive. Still, Korthak was impressed despite himself. The humans had just thrown away 20 ships and their best pilots for a chance to hurt him personally. It was wasteful and irrational and completely pointless from a strategic perspective. But it took courage. Even he could admit that. "Continue the assault," he ordered. "All ships concentrate fire on the remaining orbital defenses." Earth's platforms died one by one. Its hidden battle stations were found and destroyed. Its few remaining ships were hunted down and eliminated. Within 4 hours, the planet's defenses were gone. The way was clear for invasion, but when Korthak's troops landed on Earth's surface, they found something unexpected. The cities were empty. The military bases were abandoned. The industrial centers had been destroyed by their own workers. Billions of humans had simply vanished into underground shelters and hidden bunkers. They had left nothing useful for the invaders to capture. Where is everyone? Korthak demanded. His ground commander, General Vextar, was equally puzzled. The population centers are deserted, sir. We're finding evidence of mass evacuation, but no indication of where they went. Find them. They cannot hide forever. But as the hours passed, it became clear that the humans had prepared for this day very carefully. Earth's surface belonged to the hegemony, but Earth's people had gone underground, and from their hidden shelters they began to make the occupation as difficult as possible. Power plants exploded. Transportation systems failed. Communication networks went down. Every piece of infrastructure that the aliens tried to use had been rigged to self-destruct. In the government bunker, Prime Minister Boram Kim watched the reports with grim satisfaction. The surface battle was over. The hegemony controlled Earth's sky and most of its land, but they controlled nothing else. "Ma'am," General Seok Jin said quietly, "it's time." Boram nodded. She had hoped it would not come to this, but she had always known it would. The humans could not win this war in any conventional sense, but they could choose how they lost. "Activate the Samson Protocol," she ordered. Deep beneath Earth's crust, in secret facilities built over the past 3 years, massive explosive charges began to arm themselves. They were placed at key points in the planet's geological structure: fault lines, volcanic systems, tectonic stress points. The plan was simple and terrible. If the humans could not keep Earth, they would make sure no one else could have it either. "Sir," General Vextar reported to Korthak, "we're detecting massive energy readings from beneath the planet's surface. The humans appear to have built some kind of, weapon." "What kind of weapon?" "We're not sure, sir, but the energy signatures are enormous. If they activate it..." Korthak suddenly understood what the humans were planning. It was insane. It was impossible. No rational species would even consider such a thing. But humans were not rational.